Hi everyone, it's me Eva. I'm a knitter, a stitcher and a maker at heart, and this is going to be a video about everything I've been making in February 2024. So welcome along, I hope you are well. I've got a bit of knitting and a tiny bit of sewing to show you this time, but before I get into that I have to just say thank you so much for welcoming me back so warmly when I posted my first video in a couple of years at the end of January. I will admit I was quite nervous to post it. It's been ages since I've been on YouTube and I've had a bit of a time of it during that, so I didn't realise that I was really holding my breath when I pressed publish. So when I started to get comments to say, "Oh hi Eva, welcome back, it's nice to see you," I exhaled, and I just wanted to say that a little comment went a really long way, and that you are all super lovely and kind and supportive, and I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. So the first thing to start with, I wanted to update you on my garter stitch blanket because I asked for your advice last time. I'll do a really quick recap in case anybody doesn't know. I'm knitting a double knit weight garter stitch blanket to use up all of my yarn scraps, which are here, and these are fingering weight scraps left over from mostly socks and things like that. And I'm holding those scraps together with a cone of yarn, and it was I felt quite a cold bare colour. It was more of an ivory than a cream, and I was dubious as to whether they were blending together very well. At first, lots of you commented, and thank you so much for your input. At first it seemed like it was a consensus of just carry on, it's going to bed into itself. The more I'd only knit about 6 inches of blanket, and so most people thought just let it grow and then see how you feel. A few people then said you should follow your heart and change it now, because what I proposed was skeining up the bare yarn and dyeing it a really pale brown, just a bit of a warmer colour. And so I was really torn, and then Ali commented that I could use what I've got already as a scarf, and that unlocked something in my brain that I didn't have to necessarily frog it in order to change direction. And I've always said, and I always used to say this to my kids, if you can't decide between one thing and another, the answer is both. So I started to think, how can I have both? So here's what I did. I snipped the base yarn off. I put the existing blanket onto waste yarn. I skeined up the cone. I think in the end I got 3 100 grams, and then I split the difference between the last two because there was a knot in it, so I ended up with 2 of about 85 grams because some of it was still in the original blanket. I did go ahead and dye them, and spoiler alert, I'm really happy with the results, but I will say that I was attempting to get 5 identical skeins of yarn, and that did not happen. So I'll show you the first one. They're a bit muddled up now because I'm having to record this for a second time because my dog has been making a bit of a nuisance of himself. That's the first one, and it's much warmer than it was originally. It was slightly paler than I wanted, so I did go ahead and add a tiny bit more dye for the second one. All of this is Chestnut Brown by Jacquard Dyes. It's an acid dye, and it's my favourite dye because if you use it sparingly you get beautiful shades of pink. It's really lovely. So you can see they're slightly different. The third one was slightly darker and maybe a little bit pinker again, and I really like that one. That was probably my favourite. So I tried to recreate it for skein number 4, and maybe because we're getting into the 80 grams now and there was slightly less wool to take up the dye, that's gone a bit browner. And then the final one, number 5, did nothing different, super brown. So partner came home and said, how are you getting along? And I said, well, look how different they all are. I can't understand it. I did exactly the same thing each time. And I held up to him this yogurt pot that I was using to measure the dye with this crudely drawn Sharpie line on it. I said, I've put up to here every time. And he said, the bottom of that big fat line or the top? I said, somewhere around that line, of course, because I am famed for not being terribly accurate with measurements, and people try to get recipes off me. It's a joke because I say, you just put some of that in until it feels right, and then you add a bit of that. So, yeah, I'm really happy with them, but I was saying to my family, oh, they're meant to be all the same, and my youngest said, Mum, it's an ombre. You've dyed an ombre. So I'm happy with that. I didn't realise I was going for a fade, but there we are. I think because I will be knitting it with the scraps, it will be absolutely fine. And I am going to go ahead and knit it in the order of palest to darkest, because you never know. Imagine if some kind of discernible ombre effect came out. It would be really cool. So there we are, an ombre of yarn. And then what I also did was I dipped the blanket into the dye bath as well, just to take the edge off the paleness of that original yarn. I'll put in a tiny snippet here of it going into soak so that you can see the difference now between how it was and how it's come out. I really think it's just softened it a little bit. So I haven't knit on it at all because I wanted to show you these before I caked one up and started knitting on it again, but I'm really excited to get going with it now, and I won't show it to you again until I've got loads of progress, because I don't want you to get sick of hearing about this extremely overthought blanket. But thank you so much for your input, because it was really helpful, and I like to think in a funny way that I followed everyone's advice, because I haven't frogged it, but I have also changed direction. I know that dyeing yarn is an extremely skillful and it's hard work, but I do have a little dream that one day I would be a yarn dyer, but I think I'd have to specialise in one of a kind yarns, because people would be like, Eva, can you do me a sweater's quantity of that yarn? And I'd be like, no. You want an ombre sweater, I'm your guy, but repeatable colourways, no. So that's my garter blanket, currently living in one of those IKEA baskets, which I find super useful for projects. It'll probably outgrow it pretty quickly, but for now that's good. And I guess I'll talk about my finished object next, because I'm wearing it. This is a simple thing, or the simple thing. I'll put the designer on the screen because I'm not sure. This is a little scarfette, shawlette, and it's very, very similar to the Sophie shawl and the Sophie scarf by Petite Knits. I do have the Sophie shawl pattern, and I feel like everybody feels obliged to comment on the nature of that pattern, because it's a paid for pattern, but it's very, very simple. And for me, I've got absolutely no problem paying a designer to have an idea, take beautiful pictures, knit samples, tell me exactly what to do, even if it's simple, absolutely fine. And I have knit the Sophie the Sophie shawl, but it's a worsted weight shawl, and I did it on fingering weight. And I really love it, but it is quite long and thin, so I think I'll have to tinker around with that if I were to do it again. But it was a really enjoyable knit. But I didn't want to also buy the scarf, because I think the differences are going to be so small, it will just be a different rate of increase or something. So I thought I'll do this one, and perhaps I'll look at both and compare. This is a DK weight pattern. I don't know if I mentioned, but this one is free, and it was on my list of things to do this year. How do you plan your knitting? Do you do a year's worth of things that you want to make? That's what I do, because I've got so many plans in my head. I need to give it some kind of structure, but I don't hold myself to it because I am quite capricious. If something new comes along, I'd rather knit that. And this was a really spontaneous thing. This was on my list, but not necessarily now. And I was having a look on one of my favourite yarn dyers, which is Hedgerow Yarns, because it's always just got a lovely little selection of one-of-a-kinds and lovely speckled things. And this was a skein of speckly DK weight. I think it's 100% merino. And I bought it, it arrived, I caked it up, I cast it on, and I cast it off about 24 hours later. I really, really enjoyed knitting on this. It's just so addictive. It's just great, and it grows so quickly. But actually, I don't know if I can even say that this is the simple thing, because I looked at the cast on and thought, that looks a bit fussy, did my own thing. The increase was a make one left, which I'm not keen on. So I did knit through the front and back loop. I knit about that much and felt like it was becoming too wide too quickly, so I changed my rate of increase. So really I used the correct needles, which I think were 4.5, and the correct weight of yarn, and then I departed from the pattern really. I forgot to weigh the skein before I started, and it's a symmetrical pattern, so when I got to 55 grams left I started to decrease because I didn't want to run out of yarn. But actually I think it must have been a really generous skein because I had 15 grams left when I cast off. I did remember to change my increase rates back to how I'd started so that it ended up symmetrical. But it's a super fun pattern. It's really, really gorgeous, squishy, soft yarn. I blocked it, and I blocked it quite aggressively to get a little bit more length because I was conscious that I hadn't used the whole of the skein up. And it's really, really warm and cosy and fun to wear. I imagine there's loads of different ways you can wear it, but I like to just put a little knot in it. Yeah, it takes the chill off. It's lovely. So that's the simple thing. And I don't know if it's in here with my garter. Yeah, with my 15 grams I crocheted a little rose, and I've turned that into a brooch with one of those metal backs, and I guess I could wear it with the scarf. And this I think took 10 grams, so I've still got 5 grams left of the yarn. You crochet this in a strip and then it sort of naturally starts to curl around, and you just put it together and sew it at the back. This was from a tutorial by Hopeful Turns, which is a great crochet tutorial channel here on YouTube. And I think when I eventually get my act together and reopen my shop, I'd really like to start selling these and maybe using leftovers from loads of projects, because I really like having flowers on my project bags. So like that, sometimes sewn, sometimes crocheted, and I thought I could sell them with little tags with the origin story of the yarn, maybe what project it's come from or who the dyer was. And I'm going to make loads and loads more of those. I can feel a new thing coming along. So yeah, that's my simple thing and my little rose. The next thing I have to show you is a pair of black leg warmers. I debated whether it was even worth showing these because they're just black leg warmers, but then I thought it might be useful to say the numbers and everything that I've done in case you fancied a pair of leg warmers. They're living in my lovely dear bag. I think this is a Michael Miller fabric and I really love it. And I am knitting these from Drops Daisy. I think it's still on sale at the moment. It's usually £3.50 and it's about £2.45 at the moment. So run don't walk, as Tim Gunn would say. It's 100% non-superwash wool. It's really, really soft. The black colourway is 03, and I bought two 50-gram balls. These are for my eldest. She has got a pair of Dr. Martin shoes, and she says she doesn't always want to wear woolly socks with them, but her ankles get cold, so she wanted some black leg warmers. So what I did was, I had recently bought myself a pair of 3.25mm Leica needles. I think that's how you say it. And I bought them for knitting DK socks because I knit the first pair I've ever kept for myself over Christmas, and I am a convert. I would like lots more, and they're really nice to knit on the circulars. I really like small circulars for socks, and these are sort of a driftwood tip, and they're really comfortable and nice to knit with. So I cast on 48 stitches as I would for a DK sock. I knit, I think, 10 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then I did one increase round, so I increased every 12 stitches, so there's just 4 more stitches for the main body, and then I did the equivalent ribbing at the end, and I think I've used about 45 grams of the 50 gram ball for this. I was quite worried that it was too slim, so I did it good and long so that at least it would scrunch up. But my eldest has tried this one on and it fits okay. So, and I tried it on, and my calves are not as slim as hers, and it was still okay, stretchy enough. And you know, I think maybe if you wanted to wear them really high, maybe you might consider casting on maybe 4 more stitches, but 48 worked okay for both of us, and particularly if you're going to wear them scrunched down a little bit. So yeah, next time, if these are finished, I'll get her to send a picture of them with the shoes and everything, but it seems to be okay. I think that formula is good. 48 stitches, increase 4, and then yeah, knit for most of the 50 grams. So I haven't started the other one yet because I got a little bit sidetracked with my spontaneous make, but I'll get to working on the second one now. I also have another new cast on to show you, and I think this is the cutest named pattern that I've ever knit before. It's the Bonjour Hi from Pearl Soho. This is another free pattern, and I'll just show you the needles first. I'm knitting them on Knit Pro Symphonies. I think, is this a 5mm? I can't quite remember. I'll pop it on the screen. It's whatever the pattern recommends anyway. Oh wait, yeah, it is 5mm. I've got the empty packet here. Yeah, 5mm for the main body, 4.5 for the ribbing, and it's a cowl / shrug because it goes right over the shoulders, and I am knitting it in Drops Baby Merino in colour number 41, which is this plummy colour, and Drops Kid Silk Mohair, which is the colourway Cherry. I'm not sure of the number, but I'm pretty sure it's called Cherry, and they're very, very similar to each other, and this is the fabric that they make up. So it's like in fact, shall I pop it on? I've put the whole project onto waste yarn because it was on very small circumference needles, so you wouldn't have been able to get any sense of it at all. So I've put it onto waste yarn. So you have this kind of slouchy neck, and then it comes down over the shoulders. I need to knit a good bit more ribbing because I think the last thing you want is it to end exactly mid-boob as it is doing right now. So I cast on the size 2, which was foolish and reckless and also wrong, because I didn't have any context for that. It could have been a 10-year-old size for all I know, but I think it's worked out okay. But I have had to add on a lot more length. After you've done the increases, I think it said to knit 12 rows, and I've knit 25, and I still need to do extra ribbing to make sure it's longer. So don't follow my guidance when it comes to sizing on this one. do your own research, as they say. But it's really cosy and warm. The reason I want this is because I have quite a long run to drop my youngest at college. I'm often in the car for 2 hours per trip, and wearing a coat or a jacket when you're driving for that long can be quite annoying, and you can get too hot or too cold, and it's not very easy when you're driving to adjust. Whereas I thought if I pop this on, it would be perfect for like going out on a frosty morning, not too bulky to wear in the car, and then if you did get hot, it's really quick and easy to just take it off over the head. So I think it's going to be really useful. And I bought this yarn to knit a ranunculus, and then I really went off having it in this colour, but for some reason I got really excited when I put these two things together, because I didn't know what to do with this. Hello, Mr. P, you coming up? Come on then. You coming up? Come on then. You can do it. I know you can do it. Believe in yourself, Mr. P. You can do it. Come on then. Come on then. Come on. You're just going to make this as awkward as possible. Come on, I've seen you do it. I know you can do it. Well, it appears we have a co-host now. Sorry about that. So, yeah, a little bit more knitting to do. I think it's going to be lovely. I could imagine doing more. I've seen on the Ravelry project pages that people add lace and things to the borders, so I think, like the simple thing, it's like a really nice jumping off point for different things that you might want to add in. Oh, are we having a huggle? I love you too, Mr. P. I will say the only thing, and it's purely personal, I really do have an irrational dislike of make one lefts. I think it's make one left, the one where you pick up from the front and then you knit through the back loop. It might be the Knit Pro Symphonies because they're not particularly sharp needles, but I just find the knitting through the back loop part really awkward, and my dislike was so strong that I paused mid-project to Google it, and the Yarn Bureau or the Wool Association or whatever they're called, they say the make one left is the best of all the increases because unlike the knit through the front and back loop, it's virtually invisible. But I can see mine so much they're really bothering me, and some of them look quite funky. So I will block this and hope that it blocks out. And there's so many of them in this project because every single bit of shaping in this project is a make one left. So but I don't think it would put me off knitting again, but I might perhaps just try a pair of sharper needles really to help ease that process. But I knit this, I think I cast it on about a week ago, and it's been at this stage for a few days. It's a really quick knit, and I would say it's kind of as warm and cosy as a jumper, so if you needed something warm in a hurry, definitely try the Bonjour. Hi. Because it's great. I'm absolutely enjoying doing that. I've got about 15 rounds of ribbing to go, I think. I did time myself because I was hoping to get it ready for today, but it takes me about 10 minutes to knit one row of ribbing, so I would have had to have been knitting on it constantly for about 3 hours last night, and after about an hour that was all I had in me. So yeah, hopefully I'll show you that all finished and ready to wear next time. This is the third ball. I had 150 grams of this and 75 grams of this. This is only the second ball of mohair, and it's the third ball of merino, so I'm hoping I will have more than enough for a crochet rose to go on here as well, and I think that would look really nice and just fancy it up a little bit. That will be my embellishment to the pattern. So hopefully I'll show you that next time. And that's all living in my bow tie bear project bag. So let's pop this back on. So I think that's all my knitting. Oh no, I've got a finished object which I will put a tiny bit of footage in about here because they were a gift and they have been given away. I've realised that I seem to be giving everything away this month before I can podcast about it, so I'm just doing a little video here to show you my finished socks. These are the Red Robin pattern by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, and the yarn is by Elliot Crafthouse Magic and it's called Walking in the Air. I've used some little minis from KFI collection. They're little 10-gram balls. There's a little bit of the olive colour for the heel that I had left, and I used coffee for the toes and sky for the cuffs, and they are a gift for a friend of my youngest who is coming to visit during the half-term holidays next week, so they're going to get given away as an early birthday present then. And I've got about 44 grams left of the lovely main colour, so that's enough to do something for myself as well, so happy days. So that was my socks. I've got no socks on the needle at the moment and I'm going to keep it that way in order to make some progress with other things. I will insert a little clip here now about my sewing because that's also been given away, and then I will talk to you about my plans for March. Hi everyone, it's Eva from Days of Yore. I just wanted to pop on and show you the cushion that I made this month because I'm thinking that maybe by the time I record my YouTube podcast it will have gone off to its new home. So here it is. I'm sorry I don't know the designer of these fabrics, but they were described as 1930s reproduction nursery prints, and I got them from Sew Motion, so they may still have some of these fabrics. It was a few years ago that I bought them. It was a jelly roll of fabrics, and I've made this huge cover for my eldest. She has taken a room in the city so that she can be closer to uni because we live rurally and it's a right old pain to be travelling from here on buses that sometimes don't turn up and things like that. So she's staying there in the week, and this is going to be for her armchair. She's always loved this fabric. It took 200 squares, 100 on the front and 100 on the back, and I inserted a not so invisible zip, but luckily I had one that went really nicely with the blues, and I did it all on the machine, and I did diagonal quilting, and it's a 20 by 20 inch cushion, so it's a big guy, and I really love the way it turned out, and it's a lovely way to use up the rest of this jelly roll that I had. So just a quick one about that. If you want to join my free Patreon, there's a quick video of the making of this if you want to see any more of it, but here it is, and now I will hand you back to futuristic Eva. So that was my cushion, and now I'm going to show you something that I would like to cast on in the near future. I would like to make a couple of little gifts for friends, and I'd like to make the little bunny bag, which is a pattern by So Sweet Violet. I'll pop a picture in here. And I've got some lovely little fingering weight scraps. I can't remember the name of where these are from, so I'll pop that on the screen. And then I've also got the leftovers from my Maxine hot water bottle. These were little 10-gram minis from Lay Family Yarn. They're my Lay Family Yarn ones. And then I've got all of the scraps from my Poleston wrap that I'm knitting. I'm having about 2 to 3 grams left of my Kate Celine 10 gram minis by the time I've finished a pattern repeat. So I've got all of those, so I think these are going to be perfect scraps for little springtime bunny bags, and I think I'll probably put some little chocolate eggs in them too, and hopefully get those ready for the end of March. So I'll be casting those on really soon, and I think they should be quite a quick knit. I'm hoping that I can show you my anthology throw next time. I actually cast this off between Christmas and New Year. It took me a whole year to knit it because I made it with an advent from the previous year, and I haven't blocked it yet because there's nowhere that I can safely put it that little muddy paws won't trot over. But now that my eldest is staying near uni during the weekdays, I've got her bedroom that I can lay this out, close the door, and it can dry over a couple of days quite safely. So once that's blocked, I think it will be nice to come and talk to you about that. And I also hope to show you some quilting next time. I'm actually making my first ever proper quilt. It's a Dresden plate quilt, and although I've been working on it, nothing's actually come together to be able to show you yet. So I'm hoping that next month I should have some blocks to be able to show you. And if I get time, I'd really like to cast on a love note sweater as well, because I'm really inspired by the one that Ellie of Craft House Magic showed on her recent podcast. It's something I've wanted to knit for a while, but that's really made me want to cast one on. I've never knit one before. I've never knit a ranunculus before either, which I think is quite similar, but I would really like to knit both of those. But I think I'll start with the love note. I think I'm going to treat myself to the pattern for my March treat, and yeah, you never know, I may have a little bit of progress to show you on that next time. I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. Please stick around if you want to see a little bit of footage from my February, and before that, a quick plug for my Patreon channel. The free tier has now got 2 whole blog posts and a short video of the making of that cushion that I showed you, and I have gone ahead and activated my paid for tier, which also has a much longer February vlog on there if you're interested in that. So please check that out if you want any extra content from me, and until next month, I wish you a wonderful time with your making. Bye for now. Hi everyone, and welcome along. I'm Eva, I'm a knitcher.